rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start off with Sebastian Wiesa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sebastian Wiesa. I'm a senior at Somers High School, and I'm the student body president, and I'm here to give an update on the high school. In terms of student life, in the past month, we had our Spirit Week, pep rally, and homecoming dance, all of which were very successful, and students enjoyed all events very much. Yesterday, we had our senior apple picking trip, which was a lot of fun. We got a beautiful day, got a lot of apples and a lot of donuts, so that was great. Also yesterday, the Human Rights Club held a peace vigil. For the arts, tomorrow we have our Disney in Concert performance at 6 p.m. That's just a performance where various musical students at our school sing Disney songs. It's a lot of fun. Also, me and Lindsay Canavan are hosting it, so it's going to be like a great night. So I hope you guys can make it. Also, we have our fall musical on December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. For athletics, our fall teams have started playing in sectionals. Football and girls soccer are number one seeds, and girls soccer and boys football are also ranked number one in their class for the state. Girls volleyball is a 2 seed, and boys soccer is a 3 seed. So we got a lot of exciting sports coming this fall. And then after not winning a league title since 2013, our girls volleyball team has now won back-to-back league titles in 2022 and this year in 2023. And big congrats to Julia Wilkinson on winning the league title at the NISFA Diving Conference Championship, scoring 282.80 points. And this is Julia's third straight league title. Julia recorded the highest score among all 3 leagues in Section 1. She's so good at what she does. And congrats to Chloe Monticelli, who made it to the Section 1 girls tennis finals. For Student Council, we're continuing to run our Snack Shack this fall. We got a game this Friday, so we're going to be out there cooking and selling food. We're planning for our NYSCLSA conference coming up November 19th through 21st. We actually filled up our bus, so we're having 56 kids go represent Somers at the state conference, which is the most out of all the other schools going. So we're going to have a big crowd. We're also planning for our Veterans Lunch, which is going to be held on December 7th in the Commons. And that's a lunch where we bring veterans from around the area and we honor them with a nice brunch. Then for counseling, the early college application season is in full swing. I would know. To date, the counseling office has already submitted over 1,600 packets of supportive documentation for student applications. The fall DBT lessons for grade 10 wellness classes are underway as the SHS Wellness team partners with Mr. Cleary to deliver expanded lessons on emotional regulation strategies. Counselors are also going to begin holding individual meetings with all 9th graders, and these meetings will run through December. And lastly, a big thanks goes out to Terry Kaminsky of the counseling office for running our first ever digital PSAT. It took a lot of work and a lot of organization, and test day went smoother than expected thanks to Miss Kaminsky's efforts. And yeah, that was like a mess all over the country, and they did it really good at Somers. So yeah, that is all for today. Thank you for having me. I hope you all have a great evening.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sebastian. Great update. All right, now we move on to public comment on agenda items. Is there anybody here that wants to do public comment? All right, I'll read this then. All right, speakers will promptly identify themselves a maximum of 30-minute period, limited 3 minutes per speaker. No district employee or student may be commented upon, identified, named by situation. Questions asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff members for reply at a later date and time. Yeah. And again, this section is regarding anything that's on the agenda.
Hi. I connected with Mr. Kavanaugh already, who gave me some
What's
information.
your, sorry, your name?
Oh, my name is Addis. So I connected already with Mr. Kavanaugh, who gave me a little bit of information, and we're going to touch base later on. But my question, and why I'm asking this question again, I'm sure there's other parents who have the same question, which is on page 20, your small group for secondary middle school. I have some questions regarding the cadence of these groups. What is the frequency, the criteria a student must qualify to meet these groups? Is there any data you can share on these small groups program and the size, the group, the grade, and who oversees these groups? So that's my question regarding the presentation tonight. I know we connected, but there's parents who I'm positive at home have these questions as well, which would be very helpful for parents to know that they are available, and if they need to speak to Stacy and make any changes to the IEP, like you mentioned earlier, which I had no idea, and it would just be very helpful for anybody who is interested. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? No? All right, move on to the central office report.
All right, so as Mr. Kavanaugh comes up, we'll see we can get our technology to hook up here and things. So thanks, Mr. Kavanaugh. As he comes up and gets prepared, and I stall a little bit longer, we'll go ahead and this is our next part of our elements of excellence that is kind of the foundational part in the district's strategic mission, vision, and collective commitments. And so the social and emotional and physical wellness piece is where we'll go ahead and bring that up. And then we'll walk through here. Again, this is not everything and anything that can be achieved in the school district. It's a sampling of, and that's where we can go ahead and dive on a few more things if there's elements there. And Phil, we have our version of the flip book up there. So thank you. It looks great. Thank you, sir.
Am I okay? Closer? This is going to be awkward. All right. Good? All right. Okay, and just I wanted to check, I believe the board, there was one section where I'm going to be giving you some different numbers than what are up there. I don't know if you've seen that already. If no worries, if you haven't, by the time we get to it, I'll show you where we had a small adjustment, and I can give you those numbers now when we get to that point. So first off, I want to thank the board and Dr. Blanche for giving me this opportunity to speak to this, obviously, from my point of view, extremely important issue of our social emotional wellness, and understand the players in our district and our plan for support of our students. To begin, I'm going to very purposely take a page from our learning on executive functioning, which tells us that in every learning experience, we have to engage in a get ready, do, done process. This is where we prepare ourselves for the learning, do the work of the learning, and then reach the desired learning target. And to most effectively engage all learners, we need to start with what done looks like. So that's what I'm going to start with tonight in terms of where I want us to land, where I would like us to land, and what, in that executive functioning language, done would look like, is that we will all be able to explain our wellness team's staffing and structures. We'll be able to describe the plan and some of the tools we use to support emotion regulation here in the district. And then we'd be able to speak to our focus points moving ahead. So those would be our three goals, and when we're all wrapped up, hopefully everybody will be able to see that landing spot. I'll begin speaking just about the structures. I think everybody is familiar with our wellness team structures, our school counselors, our school social workers, school psychologists, and student assistance counselors. The student assistance counselors are now very excited that we're at full-time at the middle school and the high school. But overall, I just wanted to give a profile of our structures across the district. Last year, we saw some significant changes where we pushed some more support down to the elementary schools so that we can ensure that, for instance, each psychologist has 2 grades that they're specifically looking over. So starting at Primrose, each psychologist is looking over 2 grades. We added additional support at Primrose of another counselor. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's this gentleman, Jeff Getman, who is now our new counselor at Primrose, but that gives, both at Primrose and SIS, the staffing has been adjusted. So at SIS, we had one of our part-time social workers split between middle school and SIS, who's now there full-time. What this does is it gives an opportunity for our elementary staff to be able to deliver Tier 1 lessons and not have to regularly get pulled, which was the case previously. So rather than, when a crisis comes up or when they need to attend to an issue, rather than being pulled for that, we have now staff to be able to deliver the lessons and staff who are ready and able to attend to crises when they arise, as they tend to. We also have, obviously, as I mentioned, within each level, within the secondary, we also too have, we've created these teams at the secondary, which I'm extremely excited about. So what it means is that every student will have a team of support. It's not just one person that you go to. Traditionally, it would be your assigned counselor, whether you're a 6th grader or whether you're a high school senior. It's the counselor that you're assigned to. In addition to just that counselor you're assigned to, you have also too now paired with that counselor is a psychologist and a social worker at the high school. So you have a set team of who you're going to go to. If a student is having a challenge, we know exactly who we're going to go to. That team is used to working together, and that team is used to planning together. And at the middle school here, we have a similar structure where you have the counselor, school psychologist who's assigned to those 2 grades, and we also added a SEL interventionist, Ms. Cespedes, who's been great. She works with all grades, and in those teams specifically targets 7 and 8. Our student assistance counselor, Ms. Casey, who we're very excited to be able to, through the support of our grant, be able to add 5 days a week here. And she's also specializing with just our 6th grade team. So that would be Mr. Kennelly and the 6th grade counselor, who's Ms. Bieber. So they're working together. It's really, really nice to be able to know right away when a student has experienced a challenge who you're going to go to, and that team knows that they're going to work together to support that student. So within that reorganized support plan, also too, we deliver the tiers of intervention. So Tier 1 is what everyone gets. That would be the push-in lessons. That would be, the good example would be, and we'll go through the map in terms of what each Tier 1 support is. The Tier 2 would be more focused supports, was mentioned before. That could be small group, that could be individual check-ins. It's more targeted. Tier 3 would be for more severe cases. That would be examples of and severe is probably the wrong word, but a case that needs more intensive support. That would be an example of like our True North program here, or our TSP program at the high school. Those would be much more intensive supports that we could offer for students. All of this gets addressed within our whole child success process, and that is where our teams look at students that they can't address and find solutions in their small teams. They'll bring to the whole child success team, and then look from the broader picture about how can we address these challenges that our students are seeing. Typically, that falls under that MTSS umbrella, so it's both academic and it's social emotional, and it's very infrequent, I would say, if ever, that you could separate the two, where there's an academic challenge but not a social emotional challenge, or a social emotional challenge and not an academic challenge, or at least maybe that student is learning to the best of their abilities if there is that emotional challenge. All right, hopefully, yes, it works. All right. So this is our roadmap in terms of those Tier 1 interventions. This is what every student is guaranteed to experience, and we have some great videos. And I should have said at the start, I am very grateful both to Dr. Blanche for having the vision for this and for Amanda Bergen for putting this all together. This is an unbelievable amount of work to try to help clarify exactly what it is we're delivering. So this, as you see in this roadmap, these are our Tier 1 services, and it starts very early with responsive classroom. And you'll see through these presentations, I've been talking about our wellness teams and our wellness team supports. We don't exist in a vacuum, though. It's constant work and partnership with teachers. And I think the responsive classroom is a great example of that. Hopefully my audio works as well, too. And this is a little bit of what responsive classroom looks like.
We are going to do our knock knock reading as our greeting around the circle. Who's there? Frankie who? Frankie. Good morning, Frankie Ferrado. Knock knock. Mrs. Ringer. Good morning, Shane. Knock knock. Knock knock. Get ready for our tags. Here we go. Ready? Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Well, feel your heart right now.
All right, I apologize for the volume there. Obviously, this is just a way to get your day started. Hopefully, I can get out of that.
I know what song I'm singing tomorrow morning, by the way.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
You hit the escape
I
key?
think if you just hit escape, yeah.
Yep, it's not working. We could watch a Simpsons video. Oh, there we go. All right, delayed response. Okay, so, and obviously this is helping students to engage in a more positive interaction with their classmates within the school and create a classroom community more than anything else. And obviously this goes to supporting our sense of belonging for students as well. And it starts early with that. As we go through, a lot of what the work we do is about transitions. We have transitions as those parents who started off, very beginning, as the bus goes from Reese Park to Primrose. That's the first transition, is physically to the building. And our wellness team is really focused on transitions between building to building. It starts, again, in kindergarten, and from Primrose to SIS, from SIS to the middle school, and then from the middle school to high school. And obviously, for most significant to that point for families is beyond high school and post-high school planning. So we have Miss Bieber here, who is our counseling curriculum leader and this year's 6th grade counselor, who's going to speak to those transitions.
It's important to have an orientation process for students when they're moving from one building to the other, because it helps to create a smooth and more seamless transition from one place to the other. It lowers their social anxieties. It helps them to physically imagine and navigate a new building, to find new trusted adults, to build excitement about what's coming next. So from Primrose to SIS, the students in 2nd and 3rd grade are given pen pals. They write back and forth. The 2nd graders come for a tour of the building to meet the administrators, to see the 3rd grade wing, to do a scavenger hunt, and there's an evening program for parents to come learn about SIS. From SIS to middle school, we do something similar. We start with classroom lessons in the spring of 5th grade, where kids learn to navigate the combination lock. They come to visit the middle school. We have tour guides of students, show the students around so they can see the building and have a sense of it in their mind. Meet some of the staff members. We have a parent night in the spring to give parents information. And we run a summer orientation for the students where they actually walk their schedules with a personalized tour and get their lockers and can start setting them up. And then we do a special opening day ceremony with them also. And then from 8th to 9th grade, starts with classroom lessons in the winter and spring. High school counselors and middle school counselors collaborate. There's a parent night, and our 8th graders go up to the high school to do a taste of life at the high school, which is to see classrooms, meet staff, hear about programs. They see the band, orchestra, and chorus perform, and really get a sense of what life is like in the cafeteria and communicating with older students.
All right, first try that time, good. Okay, so as we go through, if you see there, that, and we've talked before in previous presentations about zones of regulation, that and second step, those are two of the primary programs that we use at Primrose, primarily zones of regulation. It still does get used in SIS. That is a way for students to be able to identify the emotion they're experiencing, and that's the whole goal, is to build on identifying the emotion you're experiencing, begin to start to manage the emotion you're experiencing through the second step program, and then as we move on to DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, it's each one of those is just kids learning strategies to regulate their own emotional state so that they are better prepared to learn. Both learn academically and learn socially. We know that so much of school is social learning, and again, we want students to be in a position to be prepared to do so. The self-care program is something that is offered, that's at the high school level. That's something that, in addition to the DBT, it's just something that we offer for every ninth grader, especially before the holidays. So our teams are preparing, led by our social workers, Ms. Regalia and Ms. Scavelli at the high school. They're going to be going into English classes just before Thanksgiving, especially we target that especially before the holidays, so that they can prep students and just refresh some good self-regulation, good self-care skills that they can exercise. We also started last year, again, Ms. Regalia had led that effort to bring in the JCK Foundation, where it's a local foundation that's really all about beginning the conversation about mental health. And having an open and honest conversation about mental health. We have had two gentlemen come last year and did just an outstanding job of connecting to the kids, talking about their own personal experiences. And when people are honest and they are authentic and talk about those, they grab kids immediately. So they had those presentations and came back for several days to meet with kids in small groups to process those conversations, and it was met so positively in terms of the feedback that we got from students that we decided that this is going to be something that we're going to try to keep going every year. We're able to support it now also through the grant, through the Drug-Free Communities grant, and we're going to continue that at least for the next few years as long as we keep getting such positive feedback from students. Obviously, and I'm going to, the DBT Steps A, we've talked some about that. On November 8th, thank you to SEPTA. We're partnering with SEPTA to do a presentation for parents. One of the things we've recognized and we've learned is that we need to give parents more information about the skills that we're teaching kids in school. So this happens in grades 6, 8, and 10. And so all the lessons that we teach, we're going to try to condense and just give parents a general idea of the specific skills that we're teaching and how they could possibly use those skills at home, and even the language especially, because I know students have been coming back saying, understanding that they're seeing new perspectives, understanding new paradigms, applying new skills to better manage their own day. Some parents have told me they don't understand why their child is acting so strange. They're not arguing with them as much. And so that's part of the perspective taking, understanding, walking in someone else's shoes, understanding why your parent wants you to come home and not do this or that, to be able to understand that perspective and try to come to compromise. So that's something that we're going to be delivering to parents on November 8th right here in the library at 7 o'clock. There should be information forthcoming about that. That's also that DBT Steps A is the emotion regulation is the first step to executive functioning. We know that executive functioning is something that's a great challenge and something I'll talk to in a minute in terms of what we're going to be working on, but as our consultant who has been training our staff talks about with executive functioning, if you cannot emotionally regulate, you cannot engage in that essential executive functioning. So it's that executive functioning program for our wellness summit will follow the very next week. So it'll be learn to self-regulate and then learning your executive functioning skills. The next week is November 16th will be the Tusker U Wellness Summit. And again, more information will be coming out about that. We also have, obviously, at the end of the line is college and career planning. Any parent who's been through the college process, and especially who's had a recent graduate from college, will tell you that pales in comparison. We always say, you know, where are they going to get in, where are they going to go? The biggest question then they learn quickly is, are they going to get a job? That's obviously the most important one. But we deal with what's most important right here and now, which is the college planning process. And there's a link there to, we could have multiple links just speaking to that process. And that the first college, we had our senior college night already this year. Our college night workshops will begin in December, so there'll be information coming out about that. Just one thing I just want to plug is that every time we put out something about a college night, there's always information in there. It'll be directed to a specific grade, but any grade is welcome. So you could be a 6th grade parent. If you want to find out more information about what's coming down the line, you can absolutely come to those nights. The other part of this, as I mentioned, is that we do all this in partnership with teachers, and there's other programs within the school that intertwine and that reflect a lot of the same skills that we're trying to teach, especially as we look at our MYP skills and the other programs that are offered, for instance, the WIN period here in the middle school. But here's, rather than hear any more from me, here's another quick video.
Welcome to Advisory. Advisory is a time period for you to connect with peers and your trusted adults here at SMS to learn new student skills and strategies that will help you to be a thriving learner here in our building. Advisory takes place every Wednesday morning, starting in October through May, and we look forward to this experience with you.
Somers Middle School is an MYP school. MYP stands for Middle Years Program, which is part of the International Baccalaureate Program. In 6th and 7th grade, Advisory is based on the learner attributes, which are displayed in all the classrooms. Each month will have a different theme. Advisory is fun, it's not graded, and it will help teach you skills that will translate into your real life and the classroom, like team building, communication, academic honesty, the difference between plagiarizing and paraphrasing, and how to collaborate.
In 8th grade, our advisory looks a little bit different this year. You get to participate in a capstone experience called the Community Project.
This project ties together all the skills you learned here at SMS and shows off your global citizenship. Advisory will be a time to work with your mentor as you leave your impact on the Somers community by exploring your interests and a community need.
Your work in advisory this year is going to take you up to the Community Project Showcase, which is in May. At that time, you're going to present your hard work to your peers, family, and community members who are in attendance. We can't wait to see your projects.
So as I mentioned, so many of these skills that we're teaching here overlap, and it's great to see, even as we have these conversations, all the multiple connections we make. As I look even at the learner profile and the attributes, there are so many of them that are explicitly taught in the self-regulation lessons that we teach at all grades, and it's great to see them all connect. So Tier 2 supports, as we mentioned before, these are really about, and it was mentioned earlier, about small groups. They could be operating for a number of things, social skills, changing families, especially at the younger grades. Really, there's I'd say definitely an increased focus on social skills, on engaging effectively with friends, what that means to be a good friend, and problem solving. Small groups at the secondary level, obviously we're talking about newcomers, students who are transferred into the school district. There's also peer programs and the self-care program I'd mentioned. There was a question earlier about with respect to how do I get into a group? How do I become part of a group? And there can be for a number of reasons. One of the mentions that in some cases counseling is part of a student's program, whether through a 504 or IEP, and it could be designed as group or individual. Most groups, though, are groups that are formulated due to demonstrated student need within the school. I could tell you, oftentimes, like if we speak to the middle school, shockingly, can be a lot of social drama, and those can cause conflicts with students. Those conflicts, a lot of times, students just need to work together with other peers to be able to develop the skills to how do I resolve this independently? How do I make this not more than it is? Obviously, distract from my learning, distract from my school day, cause me upset, and I'm sure many of you know who have had students go through middle school, that carries out into the family. So the hope is that we can work with students in those more focused environments. Students obviously have to be interested and willing to participate in that, and it's not a forced thing at all. At the high school level, these groups are definitely more common at the elementary level and through middle school. High school, it's still something that we're looking to push forward. We had a really good start this year, though, with one of our social workers and school counselors who's working on, they coined it the Tusker Huddle. This is for student athletes, especially athletes who have suffered injury and no longer feel like they belong to that group that they were so tightly enmeshed with. But it's also, too, working not only about that, but how they deal with performance anxiety, how they deal with the stress of playing. And taking that a step further, the next step, one of our new social workers, really exciting idea for me that I heard from her was that she's looking to start a group specifically targeting our theater students right before Hell Week, as they call it. That's Dr. Blanche. That's not I'm not using a pejorative term there. That's what they call it.
You can take care of that later, right, Paul?
But just to help those students manage the stress that comes with putting on that performance. And so that's what we're looking to do, is try to figure out what audiences we can target and how we can best support them. And that is essentially a tier 2 intervention, is where you have a more targeted intervention. It's not what everyone is getting as a general skill. There'd be a different need.
Bill,
also,
before we kind of can I interject like a quick question?
Sure.
Okay, just going back to the roadmap, I know they talked about transitions are such a difficult time, and I know that's a tier 1 level. Like, I just want to make it clear, like, there's also like extra support if needed beyond that, just basic everyone gets, like the tour of the school and everything, right? I mean,
right, that's where the tier 2 comes in. The tier 1 is what everyone will get. The tier 2 will be, and again, it's not just small groups are just one example. It's anything that's targeted. A lot of it, especially at the high school level, will be individual check-ins. There's kids who just it might not be formalized on any kind of document, but they regularly just check in, whether it's with the counselor, social worker, psychologist, student assistance counselor. Our student assistance counselor's office are always full with students, so there's opportunities to process things. And some groups happen they're not actually a formal group, but they just happen organically, and they're just where kids tend to come and be at that time and find a safe space and feel like they belong there. That address your question?
yeah, I was just, especially just transitions between school buildings. I know, like, you know, I don't want to speak to my own personal experiences. I just want to talk generally, but I know it's available for extra supports for transitioning between buildings, for instance.
Yes. Every time when we talk about those transitions, our wellness team, we have multiple meetings between staff, between teachers, instruction, and with our wellness teams to ensure that we say which students might need a little extra support. And there's always conversations as students go from building to building to identify and plan. You get a wealth of information from the prior building, and you want to make sure you use that effectively to best support the students you're getting. Okay. So another piece too that and this would be a tier 1 intervention, is the Co-Vitality social emotional screener survey. We are now in our second full year. And this was the graphic I mentioned that I'll give you some updated numbers on there, just corrected numbers. But this is and just to review, for the screener, we have a clear opt-out process. We have a number of parents who do opt their students out. We also have a very clear script that we have read to every student, that a student can select to opt out there themselves as well. This is by no means, and I think the first time around I'd heard that, well, the kids have to do it. And it's very, very explicit. We give them multiple opportunities to make sure they say, even if they just don't feel like it that day, it's okay. As I've worked with this, one of the things I've learned from the students is one of the best parts about this survey is that it just gets us having the conversation. I talked to a parent who had opted their child out, and we had a great conversation because they, at home, went through all the questions. That's a win. That's an absolute win, because you're having the conversation. Whether you do it in school or whether you do that at home, it's great as long as it's prompting the conversation. Can't tell you how many kids will say, I can't remember being asked this question, or I've never been asked this question. I don't think about that question. And it's all about their own wellness. Again, with the goal being, the whole idea behind Co-Vitality is to find their strengths, to identify their strengths, celebrate those strengths, and build those strengths. It's balanced off the idea that we all endure psychological distress at some point in our lives. Sometimes it may be much more acute. We know certainly as adults that is inevitable? And do we have the strength to be able to manage those most difficult times in our lives? Do we have the social emotional regulation skills to be able to manage that? And that's what this is looking for. That's what's helping us to identify it. It is by no means, and I have said this before and I say it again, it's one day, one snapshot, one check-in. And what I would also say is there's an opportunity, because if there is a challenge, it's a great opportunity to intervene earlier. A lot, as we all know as parents, our students don't always verbalize all the challenges they're experiencing. And sometimes those challenges could be significant, and they may just not feel that they have the venue to say it. I know we've had students who've said very specifically that this was great that they had the opportunity to be able to be asked these questions and answer them, because they don't always have that experience.
Excuse me,
Yep.
where do those surveys come from? Where do you get those surveys? Do you make up the questions, or they come from a book, or where does
and there's
it?
a great, on our website, we had our Wellness Summit last year was specifically devoted to this. It comes out of UC Santa Barbara. A professor there created the survey. The company that we use that delivers it, they didn't create the survey, they just delivered electronically for us. There's a great video there of the professor explaining how he came up with it. Even the term co-vitality, it's a play on words. Usually we talk about comorbidity, coexisting diagnoses, and it's usually looking at what the person is lacking or what's wrong. And the whole point of this is to figure out what's right, what's really, what are the students' strengths, and what opportunities are there to build more strengths. So yes, this is not something that this is something that's been researched over many years for validity purposes and used by hundreds of thousands of students. And predominantly it was used on the West Coast, but we had a committee that came together of staff, of psychologists, counselors, social workers who looked at multiple different survey tools, looked at what the potential results would yield, what kind of questions were being asked, and this was the one they eventually chose.
Do you ever review them to see if some of these questions should or should not be on there, or what's
it's a good
the
question.
protocol on that?
Yeah, there are certain questions that we would love to change. Most of them are not significant enough to be. The kids get hung up, believe it or not, on your favorite flavor of ice cream. They don't know what rum raisin is. And that sounds insignificant, but you'd be surprised at how kids get stuck on that.
That's a control question to make sure that they're taking the
Yes.
survey seriously.
Yes.
Just might want to
Yes.
throw that in there. That's why it's asked.
Yes, it is a control question, and they have several control questions,
Yeah.
like how many times have you been to the dentist? It's a control question. But there are other questions that we always say, well, it would be great if we could, but we don't have the control. We are not able to change those questions unless we created our own. But yes, so that's the short answer to that.
I was curious because there was a couple questions in there regarding families and money issues and stuff like that, I think.
No, nothing related to
That the kids were
family
worried about
finances.
money issues?
Nope.
Nothing like that?
No. All the questions are, if on the Guidance and Counseling website, there's a link to Co-Vitality. It's on the bottom left. If you click on there, you can see from the author and all the specific questions. And every time we send home the opt-out, we send home a link to all the specific questions that are asked. I know sometimes students may come what they report is being asked. That's what we experienced in the past. And we just can address those. The easiest way is to just look at the questions themselves. They're all right there on the website, and we send them every year before we send the opt-out, we'll send those survey questions home again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, you said, on the counseling page?
Yep.
Okay.
What's the percent of people that actually opt out?
I don't have the percent off the top of my head. I can get that to you, though. But it's not a significant number. Actually, this year what I saw is more students choosing. The second question on the survey is, do you agree to complete this? And we saw a fair number of students saying no. There's no question beyond that about why or anything like that. If you don't, that's absolutely okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So more this year opted out?
Sorry?
More this year opted out, you said?
More, I think, because we tried to be much more clear about, in terms of the directions, much more explicit to make sure that no student had any impression that this is something they had to do.
Okay.
So
That was because I think from last year, we just wanted to make sure.
Right.
And Phil, correct, we're approximately 3/4 of the children depending on grade level, take that. So roughly 1 out of 4 students don't.
Yeah, that's a good
Ballpark. I mean,
Absolutely, that's a good
swings
point.
up and down grade levels and things, but
Yes.
roughly quarter don't, but 3/4 do.
Right.
Are they different for different grade levels?
Different survey?
Surveys for different grade levels, or it's one survey?
Yeah, the
all-
primary and the secondary one. So it's delivered to, last year it was delivered to 5 through 12. This year, SIS decided they wanted to try 4th grade because the results that they got for 5th grade were compelling. After giving it to 4th grade, they're going to revisit that to say, is this something we want? They're always looking to say, is the information helpful or not? Or is it, more confusing? So
it's the same survey?
Yes. No, the survey for 4 and 5 is different from 6 through 12. 6 through 12 get the same survey, 4 and 5 have a different one. Yeah, it's a primary and a secondary survey. And again, it's on the website. It's broken out. It'll show you these are the secondary questions and these are the primary questions. Yeah. So once a student takes the survey, we process the results. We take a look at it, and our focal point is always on which students are indicating they're struggling. For those students who have self-identified as struggling, they're going to be pulled in by a member of the wellness team. They're going to get a check-in. And when students, before they sit and take the survey, that's part of the directions. It's going to say that so the students know that if they do come up as struggling, that somebody's going to check in on them. So we have those conversations occur. Immediately after that conversation, the goal then is for that person to talk to their team to see how can we support this student? Do they need additional supports? Are all the right supports in place already? My argument is always that if a student is coming up as struggling, we don't have the right supports in place. Whether it's outside of school, whether it's in school, there has to be something that we can tweak, that we can do better to better support that student, that they have. We want every student when they come into school to have something they look forward to in the day, some positive experience. If they're having that negative an experience, doesn't matter what else they're bringing a lot into the building. There's a lot on their minds, there's a lot they deal with. How can we help support them a little bit better? That's the goal. After that, phone call goes home, students know this is going to happen, and we talk to parent or guardian about what we came to, why they're coming up as struggling on the report, and then what we're hoping to do for an intervention, if needed. Having made some of those phone calls myself, I can't tell you the unbelievably positive conversations with parents. Parents have been enormously receptive. And sometimes it's just, yeah, we're okay, but thanks for checking in. Appreciate it. And we usually have a good conversation about it. And in some instances, it can be a simple fix. And in other instances, it's things that we would have never seen coming, and teachers have never seen coming, parents didn't see coming. It's just that the student had been internalizing a lot. And in some instances, like I said, it's just a very easy fix. Social disconnects, how can we get this student more involved? I know just this year, both the middle school is working on that, about school connectedness. There's one factor on the report that says, to what degree are you connected to your school? And I know in the middle school, the wellness team is working to improve that. So to look at how many students are not as connected and how can they improve that. At the high school, I know Ms. O'Shea is very focused on that. That's one of the data points that she's using. She has a lot of excellent data that she uses to see how she can better connect kids to activities. But that's the whole package of the report, and once that's processed, then you got the email that I sent home the other day that says it's now posted to the backpack. So we make sure we talk to all those students, talk to all those families, because we don't want something to appear on the backpack and say, your student is struggling without a conversation. So sorry.
And this is the second year you said you ran this, right?
Sorry?
This is the second year we've run this?
This is the second year, yeah.
I don't know if you have it off the top of your head. What's the, any notable questions or themes that you've seen notable changes, significant changes that are positive or negative?
I think the most what we did is after we did this administration, one of the things we did from 4th grade through 12th grade is had our wellness teams look at compare the fall of last year to the fall of this year, comparing the seasons. I realize we're also talking about different students because you have the graduating class go out, you have the incoming class come in. But I was pleasantly surprised. Again, I take it with a grain of salt. It's that one day measure. It's certainly not the law, but that we saw a significant decrease at the secondary level in students who are struggling, a slight tick up at SIS, but then again, we were also added another grade for kids who are struggling. So seeing that decline in the students who are struggling, and most of the numbers across the board in terms of persistence, in terms of self-regulation, those areas we saw a pretty good uptick. School support, family support, we're seeing positive movement in all those areas. You can't put your finger on one causal reason for it, but we're happy to see those results. Again, you could still have a student who's struggling who on that day would happen to be doing well. It's just, again, a possible indicator. And again, more than anything, if it prompts us to have the conversation, it's a win.
How does a tier progression work? So if something comes up, I'm assuming first step would be speaking to a counselor, and the counselor will decide if it needs to go to a psychologist or social worker, and then when do the parents get sort of involved in the process?
And it would, like, so for tier one, everyone's getting that. So it's when you get into tier two issues, a lot of times it'll either be someone from the school is reaching out to the parent, or the parent's reaching out and saying, so either one could be saying, or with it, a lot of times within the school, like our whole child success team process, if a student is struggling, part of, you can't make it to the whole child success team conversation if there hasn't already been a conversation with the parent. So, and when we say that, it shouldn't be a conversation, it's usually multiple conversations. So we've tried different things. It's, parents are unbelievably great sources of information to say, hey, yeah, what you're not seeing is this or that, what she or he really likes is this or that. And so we try to see how we can work together, and we'll say, this is what we're seeing in school. So it's a great partnership and collaboration. And then at a certain point, if we realize if that team can't help the student, and right now, like I was saying before, it's really great because it's not just, hey, is your, I see my social worker I see the school social worker for counseling. That means I have my counselor, and I'm also immediately tied to a school psychologist as well too, who's going to be trying to support me if needed. Not every student needs that level, tier two or tier three certainly level of support, but if needed, I have people there who can deliver that. So it can come from a variety of sources and a variety of prompts, and we rely on that, on having a variety of prompts to move a student to higher levels of support.
And the parents are involved the whole way through and notified of each session or the sessions?
Yeah, I mean, we can't operate absent parent involvement. I mean, there's such a key piece of every puzzle, every student. Like I said, for the whole child success team, there's a specific form, and it essentially says, if you are filling this out, you've done these things, if I'm a teacher and I'm referring, and if I haven't talked to the counselor, and if I haven't talked to the parent, I stop. I can't go any further. So, I think, and here's one more, again, enough of me. Let me hear, especially from, I believe this is our first student tonight.
School shouldn't just only be about academics, but like the students' role in their mental and physical and social state as well. There are always people that are here to help me, such as their counselors, there's teachers. When you're in need of help, there's always someone that you can talk to, whether it could be academically, socially, mentally, that is always there for you to help and support you. I think it's actually useful for both the adults and us as well, because I'm able to look through it and think about, oh wow, so what are some things that I'm supposed to change? How am I supposed to change this in my life? Or how am I supposed to improve this in my life? So not only is it useful for the adults, but it's also useful for us students as well. The teachers and the different directors, they can look at our results and think about what are ways that we can use to support the students and help support and improve the students' social and emotional wellness through these results. So I actually believe that it's a very useful test and it's important.
Just started with that, Phil.
As a whole, what are things that we need to do to improve students' emotional and social wellness? We look back at the different activities that students do in school and how they're helpful. And we make different workshops to help improve and develop, not only for the high school, but for the middle school and all the summer schools as well.
So Akos is also, as you referenced, a member of our Social Emotional Wellness Advisory Committee, as is Ms. Kendall. And so she is really invested, and she obviously, she's a person that we pulled in because she has obviously such great insights about programs that we offer for students. There's also, too, as I mentioned at the start, like just a couple of quick points. Youth mental health first aid. Last year we had 60 faculty members trained. That's TAs, teachers who are trained in youth mental health first aid. We also had 42 staff members, as I mentioned earlier, who engaged in executive functioning training with a consultant. We had I mentioned earlier, the annual wellness summit last year, which was focused on co-vitality and specifically offering strategies for parents to implement at home. So since that was the first time we gave the survey, if you were a parent at home and you were looking to say, how do I build persistence with my child, there were strategies on there on how you could do that from home. Obviously, extracurricular involvement. I talked about earlier about activities, about involvement, about how key it was to be involved as a student, and just some quick numbers there in terms of, I know both Dr. Blanche has survey material and Ms. O'Shea has been using student surveys too to gather feedback from students about how satisfied they are with their extracurricular involvement and the degree to which that positively impacts their experiences. And so all this together is all part of how we work towards supporting our students' social emotional wellness. Each piece or no one piece is stronger than the next. And as I mentioned before too, the next real big push for us is going to be extending those DBT lessons both to parents, to staff, and really, really, really working towards all of us becoming better versed and with executive functioning. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, a couple more questions. The tier 2 small group sessions. How many kids participate in that?
It could totally vary. It could be 3 students. It could be 6 students.
How often is it happening, or percentage how often are you guys running tier 2 sessions or so? And
typically, you'll have if a group is running, they'll usually run for a cadence of about 6 to 8 weeks, and they'll some groups they'll morph into something else, into another topic, especially if it's a social skills group. But the goal is to help students develop the skills, and within group, the whole idea is that you learn the skills from others. You learn from other students, and then you can transition back, hopefully, with skills gained.
Got it. So how does what's an example of one that would start, and then how would I find out that they're available?
So if for instance, I guess it would depend on the level we're talking about, but it could be a parent, usually the younger grades, it's more parent referral. As you get older, it's more student self-referral or observation within the school. Could still be a parent referral though too. So you could have a number of students who, let's just say, we see that there's a number of students who are having real challenges with social dynamics in the lunchroom. That could be something we say, okay, we need to start a group with these students, initially start conversations. Hey guys, what would you think about coming together, especially during lunch, and we try to work out some of these challenges. Typically at this level, students are game. And that's an easy way of how some of those groups would start. As soon as, I observed one just the other day with our SEL interventionist, an cesspitist, great conversations between the girls and about how they're going to manage and resolve the conflicts that they've been working on. Typically, once they have that learning, they can demonstrate that learning. There's no more need for that. That group can say, okay, we can come to closure.
Got it. So it's conflicts usually within that group or something like that, not just I might have a separate conflict and somebody else has separate.
No, it could be, yeah. It's a big piece of it is making sure that the kids are okay working together. That's a big part of putting a group together, is that you have to make sure that this works for everybody in the group and that they're there for similar reasons, and that they have similar challenges. That's one of the big parts about making a group successful.
And who oversees the groups?
Delivers, or?
Like who oversees them? Like they get these groups together, who's overseeing them, what's going on, what's happening, what's progressing? What's not working with the group? Right.
The wellness staff member is the one who's handles all that. So if I'm a social worker or a counselor or a psychologist that's running a group, usually it's our social workers or counselors running the groups. They'll be checking in on each student. For instance, while I'm working on You know, if I'm working on anxiety within my group, can I demonstrate at the end of our conversation, can I talk about a situation that I've had, and can I say how I handled it and how I could have handled it better? How can I handle it more effectively? For that counselor or social worker, as they assess that the student is learning, developing those skills, they're the ones who would be the professional manage that. We do keep oversight in terms of they keep track of all the groups that they're running, so we can look to see how many groups are running at a given time, who's running them, and what the focus point is.
How many social workers do we have?
We have 3 social workers across the district.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 at the high school. At each campus we have, so the focal point was to try to make sure we had a social worker on each campus. So here we have Ms. Knudsen over at SIS, and between the high school and Primrose, the social workers are located at the high school. They know they have responsibilities, especially when it comes to finances. If a family is in financial need and they need community resources, like Ms. Regalia knows that she is a resource to Primrose.
One more, sorry. Do we see kids sort of graduating from these programs where maybe, you know, they'll need more resources and then slowly you're able to adapt and not need as much support?
That's ultimately the goal for every student, is that they develop, that we see them develop the skills, that we see them just like when we see our own children move out of the house, that they develop those skills. We have to explicitly teach often, and then once they can demonstrate those skills, then they no longer need to be part of that. We'd be holding them back if they were.
No, are we seeing like significant numbers that, you know, after a year or after a couple months where they're able to sort of get off on their own and not need as much support?
That's not exactly a number that we track to say, and it's tough to pin down that you no longer need, you know, that any support. But it's something we could certainly consider looking at. Like, is that possible to track that?
And Phil, I would think that where we look at as far as the a percentage of children that are at each one of those levels, that gray area and green, you're typically going to have 80 or so % of your students are there. And then the fluidity that Phil was speaking about before, you're going to have students that will float in and between Tier 2 and Tier 3 services, Tier 3 being a very small group of students. So it's really that 1 and 2 level that you have that could be academically as well as socially and emotionally. So to have that area in the green, approximately around 80%, that's kind of the target we would see. And again, as Phil was saying before, I think that when we saw last year to this year, a little bit farther away from obviously the whole kind of the world being shut down. So hopefully then we'll be able to see numbers more analogous to this fall. And it is a moment in time. And as kids have life changes, then they go through adolescent, early, mid, late adolescence, so they've got body changes, and so it is a constant change there. There isn't a number that I don't think we could find. It's a matter of as much of what are other things that we see just matching with students attending in school. They coming to school, behavior challenges there as well as the affective. So we look at the affective, the behavioral, and the cognitive engagement to try to pull those together as best as we can. So it is a important part of our students, and I appreciate it Phil described before. The reality is if there's an academic challenge, almost 9 times out of 10 you're going to find there's an emotional affective piece, and so that's the connection there. But it is a changing environment, especially, and I know we haven't done just the middle school, but these middle school children are at a really rapid growth spurt for themselves, and physically and emotionally and psychologically. So it's a unique experience at the middle school, and I commend the team for everything that they've done and are thinking about what's the next right answer for the district and the school. So thank you.
Thanks. Great. Thank you very much. All right. Next up, the moment we've all been waiting for, the annual audit report presented by Mr. Jeff Shaver.
So I'll just introduce Jeff here. So Jeff Shaver is a partner with O'Connor Davies, who is our external auditing firm. Jeff's been assigned to Somers for the past 5 or 6 years. And tonight he's going to present on the 22-23 financials. Jeff was here a few weeks ago and met with the audit committee to review them prior to this meeting. So now he'll give his high-level overview to the rest of the board and the community.
I'm sorry, am I controlling that, or?
I got it.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the introduction, Chris. Usually this is the time when the rest of the people in the meeting shuffle out the door, so they don't have to listen to this part.
They're coming in, standing
But
room only
these
for those who
troopers
can't
see. Again, my name is Jeff Shaver. I'm a partner with PKF O'Connor Davies. I'm happy to be here to present the results of the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. As Chris mentioned, we did meet with the audit committee a week or so ago, went through everything in a lot more detail. So for tonight, we did the PowerPoint and just trying to keep it high level so everyone is up to date on everything that's going on and what we discussed. So I'll talk about the general fund a little bit, give an overview of the audit, how the audit went, and then I'll give you some financial highlights focusing on the general fund, a little bit on your debt service, and then I'll cap off by talking about some of your other funds that the district has. So in terms of the audit, we have rendered an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's also referred to as a clean opinion, and that's the most favorable opinion that you can receive. What that means is the figures in the financial statements are accurately or fairly presented in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. It also means the note disclosures contained with the financial documents are complete and accurate as well. We also have to issue a report on internal control over financial reporting, and that's required by government auditing standards. And what we say in that report is we describe that we're reviewing the district's internal controls over financial reporting in order to assist us in rendering our auditor's opinion, but not to express an opinion over your internal controls. We would also be required in that report to identify to the reader if there were any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls identified during the course of the audit. I'm happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted. So that is also considered a clean auditor's report in that case. There's also a third auditor's report. It's the report on compliance for each major federal program. You're required to have that specific audit because you expended more than $750,000 in federal grant awards during the one fiscal year. During that audit, we have to look at some specific compliance attributes related to the federal grants, and I'm happy to report that that's also an unmodified opinion. Again, that's the most favorable opinion you can receive. We do a separate report as required by New York State on your extra classroom activities funds, and also a separate letter, a report to those charged with governance or a report to the board. We summarize some of the information I'm talking about here. We would disclose any significant issues that arose during the course of the audit, anything unusual that came to our attention that we'd be required as auditors to tell you. There's nothing in that document that is unusual or different or not standard that I would need to make you aware of. So certainly all good things in that letter. And no instances of fraud were identified during the course of the audit, and none were brought to our attention. And just the status of the books and records were very good. There were some audit journal entries or some adjustments that we proposed during the course of the audit, but nothing more than some routine items that we consider to be normal. So overall, everything is operating effectively, working well, and no issues to report as it relates to the audit. So from that, I'd like to take you into some financial highlights. Hopefully everyone can read that. This is a snapshot of the general fund revenues and expenditures compared to the budget. It's a 5-column presentation. The original budget on the left-hand column. The final budget would encompass any amendments or transfers approved by the board. Third column would be your actual results. Fourth column is encumbrances or open purchase orders. They will automatically roll forward into your next year's budget. And the last column is the variance column, which is the difference between final budget, actual, less your encumbrances. So you can see on the top line, the revenues were initially anticipated to be $100,254,000. The actual revenues for the year were $102,391,000. just about 2.1 million greater than was anticipated to be collected. How that happened, two significant items in there. One was your sales tax, which is distributed to you by Westchester County, was about 450,000 greater than was anticipated to be collected. And also interest income was approximately 1.3 million greater than was anticipated to be collected. Keep in mind, this budget would have been adopted spring of 2022 when interest rates were close to zero. So it wasn't anticipated any significant amount of interest income would be earned. Things changed significantly since then. You're able to earn much higher than you anticipated. So certainly positive things there. And those two items account for close to $1.8 million of that $2.1 million variance. On the expenditure side of the budget or appropriation side of the budget, you initially anticipated spending $100,978,000. That number was revised upwards to $103,572,000, while your actual expenditures were $100,987,000. After accounting for the $306,000 of encumbrances, that represents an underspending of the budget by about $2.3 million. So compared to the revised budget, underspending $2.3 million. In addition to the additional revenue that was collected, $2.1 million, gives you a total budgetary surplus of about $4.4 million. Keep in mind, in the first column, the original budget, the number all the way in the bottom, $1,049,000 is a balancing figure in your budget. So when the budget is adopted, typically the revenues are less than the expenses, and you have to use some fund balance to balance your budget. In the case of the 22-23 fiscal year, the district utilized $528,000 of fund balance to balance its budget. In addition, there were $520,000 of encumbrances or purchase orders rolling forward from the previous year, which is a planned use of the fund balance. And the two of those items together gives you the $1,049,000. The way I like to describe that is if you collected every dollar you anticipated collecting and spent every dollar you anticipated spending, your fund balance would come down by that $1,049,000. Okay. However, that didn't happen. You didn't need to use the $1,049,000. You revised that figure by a significant dollar amount in this case, up to $10.6 million. And that's a significant difference. That's a $9.5 million change, two items in there. One was the $7 million transfer to the Capital Projects Fund, which was approved. Okay, so that was a planned use of your fund balance to fund the Capital Projects Fund. So it comes out of the general fund, goes into the Capital Projects Fund. In addition, there was $2.5 million, a certiorari settlement that needed to be paid out coming from your certiorari reserve, and that is also a use of your fund balance. So initially you planned on utilizing $1,050,000 of your fund balance. That number got revised during the year to $10,582,000. You didn't need to use $10,582,000 of your fund balance because you had the budgetary savings. So the difference between those two numbers becomes the actual change in fund balance. In this case, it's a $5,883,000 decrease in your fund balance. And again, don't be alarmed by the decrease. The $7 million was a planned use, and the $2.5 million was also a planned use, which would have changed you from a decrease to an increase had those two items not happened. So you started the year at $20,534,000 in fund balance, and the year $14,651,000. The next slide shows how the different components of that fund balance. I've also done like a 5-year history here for you, but the 2023 years in the first column. And you can see the number on the bottom, $14,651,000 is your total fund balance. Of that amount, $10,078,000 is what we refer to as restricted fund balance, and those are your reserves. They're set aside for these specific purposes as listed, and they would be required to be used only for those specific purposes. So you have a tax certiorari reserve, $5,854,000. Notice it did come down by that roughly $2.5 million from the previous year because you spent some of that reserve. And then you have 214,000 for employee benefit accrued liabilities, or your employees' leave time when they retire or resign from the district. 2.7 million for retirement contributions, and 1,267,000 in future capital projects. And that's in addition to the 7 million I mentioned before. That would be items that would need to be approved separately in the future. And then you have assigned fund balance, or again, the purchases on order or encumbrances, and they're earmarked to show you've committed to spending those funds, but won't do so until the 23-24 fiscal year, $306,000. The remaining fund balance is the unassigned fund balance. I refer to it as residual because it's your total fund balance less all the other components. So that number is $4,247,000. That number is limited by New York State law to be 4% of your next year's budget, or your 23-24 budget. You're currently at that limit. And that's how you get to your $14,651,000. Next slide, changing gears somewhat. Debt service outstanding. Total bonds outstanding, $34,035,000. And there's also the energy performance contract. The amount outstanding on that is $8.7 million. Keep in mind, there's no net cost associated with that, as the savings from the energy efficiencies would, be enough to pay any debt service that's required. And you have a small amount of installment purchase debt, $821,000, bringing you to total outstanding debt of $43,624,000. The bottom half of the slide, you can see how the payments work out over the next 5 years, and then in 5-year increments thereafter. Just highlight there, the bond payments, principal and interest, are level for the next 4 years, with a drop off in the 5th year, as you have one bond that will come due in the 27 fiscal year. So freeing up some room for additional debt service within that time period. I do believe there's some discussion about the district making some headway there.
So just follow up on that. That's exactly the timing piece. We'll be working with our partners to go ahead and look at the bond in 2025, not this May, the following May, to go and look at updates to our facilities, some of our external or building envelope type things, paving, concrete, and then also some internal elements. And then the intent there is to, as this bond finishes off, the other one will come on. So we're trying to have that be a cost neutral proposal as we move forward with this. So again, there's always a portion of our budget that is into the capital improvement of the school district. And so as this comes on, the other one will come on, and so it'll be basically a cost neutral piece. Chris, is there anything else you want to add to that one?
I think you said it's just kind of, one comes on, one goes off. It kind of keeps it steady. It does help with our tax cap calculation as well, so we don't see big swings in our maximum allowable levy limit for that as well. So,
thank you.
One last slide. Switching gears a little bit.
Staying flat, though, did you do that with the adjusted interest rate calculations, or is that assuming interest rates go back down?
we're going to interest that we earn the additional revenue this year you're talking about?
No. On the
Or
one
on the
goes
bonds.
off, it goes back down the bonds.
Yeah, so we'll work with our fiscal advisors and see the scale of the project that we can do with the interest rates at that time.
At that time.
And where they might project them, a couple of years out.
And that's a good question, because the reality is on any bond, there's always more you'd like to do, and that'll be the dollar amount that we'll be able to do, and then see how far it can go based upon interest rates and the wage and everything there. So.
Significant change from what we've done.
Exactly, yeah. Yes. Not in the favor of the district,
No.
Yeah. Good point.
I guess that's the flip side of the interest income. You earn it on cash, but then when you issue debt, the interest rates have gone up. There's no two ways about that. Yeah. So certainly, higher interest rates going forward. Good thing that you have locked in your rates from the previously issued debt. So you issued it at a more favorable time, and you get to keep that until those bonds are paid off. So certainly no reason to complain about that. Last slide is just a little bit on some of the other funds. I specifically was talking about the general fund, and these are all the other funds that the district has. In the special aid fund is accounting for the federal and state grants that the district has. When I talked about that federal single audit, The special aid fund is where those grants would be accounted for, and you just see money being spent in that, and then the revenues match because you're being reimbursed by either the state or the federal government for all those dollars spent. You have the capital projects fund. That's for previously approved projects. Keep in mind that $7 million that I mentioned before was transferred over to the capital projects. It's really the biggest part of what's sitting there now, because as of June 30th, you only just started spending that money. So still, I don't know where you stand at this point in time, but I assume, there's certainly a plan, and that's going to be spent down soon.
We just recently got approval for our
Right.
athletic facility upgrades. Yeah, so.
So that's as of June 30th, 2023, the $9.2 million was for that. The school lunch fund is just for your school lunch operations, $346,000 of fund balance there. The special purpose fund is kind of like a catch-all fund where all your other activities not accounted for in these other funds would be captured, like extra classroom activities go in there, scholarship accounts, school trip accounts. Sometimes we see in there, things like that don't really belong anywhere else go into the special purpose fund. And finally, the debt service fund, those are amounts restricted. It can only be used to offset those debt service costs. So that fund balance there is $434,000. And that's really it. That's my PowerPoint for tonight. If there's any questions from the board, I'd be happy to try and answer or go into anything more detail if you'd like.
The fund balances that we maintain, there's the 4% for the unassigned. That's generally seen as healthy to keep it at, try to maximize that fund balance, correct?
Exactly. 4% is considered to be, it's New York State law, so you're not supposed to go above that, but it's really, if you think about 4% of your budget, it's really not a significant percentage. So the prudent thing, and most districts do it, and especially, at least in this region that we work with, keep that 4% or very, very close to it. So it's certainly the common thing to do, and I think the most prudent thing to do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
An unmodified thank you.
Very nice. That's good.
All right, now we move on to committees and liaison reports. Policy, you guys are going later on, so I don't think you give your update then?
Yeah, that's
There. Planning committee?
We meet next Tuesday
All right.
for the first time.
All right, so next time you'll give an update on that?
Yes.
And that's goals and objectives and all that, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Communications?
Yeah, we met about 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. A couple items we spoke about, putting more focus on family and community involvement to increase awareness of the district programs and initiatives. A couple items, Tusker Talk podcast, and I saw one just got posted a couple days ago. Or yesterday, actually. I haven't listened to it yet.
I haven't gotten a chance either.
Talk about using the Somers record to publish elements of excellence profiles. Try to do that like 6 times a year. Tusker U session, and just notification, November 4th is going to be the MYP presentation right here. I guess that's 7. We've been working on developing a bigger partnership with the PTA, and most of us have been attending or trying to get at least one of us to attend at least each PTA meeting, SEPTA meetings, other events throughout the year, so we just started the schedule through December. A couple items we talked about, more community events. We've gone back and forth on family pasta night or a coffee and dessert session, so we could put that up to a vote, see what the community wants. And I think we were looking at a February, March timeframe. Also setting up a coffee and chat sessions periodically at each building. I think the family liaison role that's been just as she started and has been underway, which she's been working with new families entering the district to help navigate getting set up and any issues going on, and website update for the summer of '24, make it a little bit more user friendly, and I think the PTA in the last meeting was talking about combining their websites into one group and make it a little bit more so you're not bouncing around between different sites to get through everyone.
But I think Ray also mentioned that if any board member sees anything they like on another website, like now would be the time to kind of start taking note, and we can kind of work towards that over the summer as we launch into a new person doing our website. Right? Is that?
Yes, that'd be great. And you should have the copy of the team is working on kind of the plan, and then after this evening, we'll get that up on the website and stuff. So the board had an opportunity to preview that first. So.
So there'll be a link on the website for people to put comments on or something, right?
Not comments, just.
No suggestion. You just ask for suggestions of things. That we'd like.
It's from the board. If you have board
Got it.
presence, because one of the activities the board wanted to do is what is your look and feel that you up on the website.
Got
so
it.
if you go to another site and you see something, just snag it and send it to the team, and we'll work as we transition this summer.
Yeah, one of the things that resonated with me, I went to I think you and Amanda Bergen were on it as well,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
There's a communications webinar recently run by NISBA, and one of the things they said is, like, if someone can't find it in the first 5 minutes of getting to your website, then forget it. It's dead. They're going to be on
5 minutes.
It was shorter than that, but you get my gist. And
My attention span shorter than that.
But basically it's dead, and you're going to be looking for it elsewhere, whether it's a Facebook group or whatever. So it's important to make sure that you have the relevant information front and center. So I think that's what we're striving for, because I know sometimes our website can be hard to navigate, to say the least. So.
And the change, the impetus for this is our current vendor was purchased by another vendor, so the timing works perfect with the work that we're all trying to have out there in the community, so folks easily and quickly access information, and we have to move to a vendor, so it made sense. So, well, thanks everybody.
And the vendor that purchased it, I know we've seen some of the work they've done, which has been really quite good.
Great. On the PTA side, I made 2 meetings. One was the SMS one, which was more of just the kind of their PTA update one. The other one, I got to go to coffee with our high school principal, Mr. Bayer. That was well attended with myself, Mr. Bayer, and 3 other individuals. So that was disappointing though. Here's a session, again, this is what we're trying to get out there. I'm trying to attend, others in the board are trying to attend, the principals and administration, everybody, and I know Ray attends a bunch of these, are going there, and this is actually meant for dialogue with the community, and extremely disappointing that everyone took their time out and only 3 people showed up at this. So it's sad, but here's an opportunity to kind of raise up issues, questions, have more of a dialogue as far as what you're seeing, hearing, get real things done. I know, a couple things, I don't have the full list in front of me. I know in the past, some things such as the AP tests being paid for, I think that was one of the things that they were talking about was brought up in past ones. And Mark, if that was you or somebody else, but I think you brought that up, and then next year that was bubbled up to the board and got approved that we're paying for that now. There was a couple other examples I don't have off the top of my head right now, but here's a real chance to have an open dialogue, not over email, in person, face-to-face conversation with not only the administration, now the board, some board members are going to it, and also other members of the community. But 3 people is extremely disappointing. And I know we're all busy, but make time. All right. Anything else on committees and liaisons?
Can I do this? Can I talk about CWAC, or is that?
Sure.
Okay. I know we had a night of social emotional wellness, but we did have our first CWAC meeting, so it kind of dovetails nicely with that. For anyone who doesn't know, it stands for Social Emotional Wellness Advisory Committee. I know that student talked about it very nicely in the Element of Excellence report. So it formed at the end of the 21-22 school year. So at our first meeting, we were able to look at, we focused on the importance of the executive functioning, how it's a foundational skill for all kids, and to learn the need to explicitly teach those skills to kids. And that was kind of a lot of what the work was done last year in CWAC, and so now it's being brought forward as a result of all of that feedback and everything else. As Phil mentioned earlier, that the Wellness Summit is coming up on November 14th, and that'll focus on those skills as well. Let me see. The committee also looked at the multi-tiered systems of support or tiered interventions, which was also discussed tonight, provided feedback on where alignment was needed, where gaps could be filled in, areas for growth. So this directly resulted in the district adding a second counselor at Primrose. I mean, all these things I guess Phil already kind of talked about, but at Primrose, adding a social emotional interventionist at SMS. So things definitely resulted. There was a lot of great work that was done in the committee and being brought forth this year. So, and then the goal this year for the committee is to ensure awareness and commitment of social emotional wellness, and enhance our individual and collective understanding of social emotional wellness. And we also had an excellent discussion on what an IB education is and how social emotional learning ties directly into those approaches to teaching and learner profiles, specifically self-management skills, because that's a big area in the social emotional wellness piece. So it's just another way of seeing how the IB program really aligns with our district's mission, vision, and values. And I believe Phil also mentioned this as well, but I just want to reiterate that the district has partnered with our special education PTA to have a night of learning for parents on the DBTA lessons, which I think which are offered to kids in 6th, 8th, and 10th grade. So I think that'll be a great way for parents to make that connection. I know it's come up at a couple different events I've attended so far, like freshman orientation and things, of parents wanting to see how these lessons are implemented in the school, because often we don't hear that report from our children ourselves, so it'll be great to hear from them. So look forward to those.
Great. Anybody else?
Just a couple things for West Putt as liaison for that. Just a couple things that are coming up. You should have gotten an email today. One of the new things that West Putt is putting out by email is a monthly show and tell. So they pick a different topic each month, and then there's a link in there, and so you can choose which modality you want to use, or both, so that you can, one link where you can read and watch, read articles or watch videos for some information, and the other one is a podcast. So this month's topic is innovation in education. They say innovation, I haven't looked at the things yet, but because it just came out today, but innovation in education creates a collaborative culture where kids are excited to learn. It looks beyond standardized tests to really move skills ahead and allow students to discover what they're capable of across all subject areas. So it sounds pretty relevant to a lot of the conversations we've been having here, so make sure you check your emails for that and take a look. That's the great thing about what West Putt School Board Association offers, is just a lot of professional development for us. Even though we're here as volunteers, we still can learn and bring that to our roles. And then the other thing is the November 6th, the regional dinner, which I think Chad said maybe you're going to be able to go. So hopefully, like I said, I was hoping to go to that, and I'm not going to be able to. But that's the one that also has a discussion on, or a presentation on unleashing assessment potential, about performance-based assessment, which also seems pretty relevant to what we've been doing. So hopefully if somebody can go to that, make sure you let Nancy know soon so you can sign up. And there's an advocacy meeting coming up if anybody's interested on October 30th at 7 o'clock. That's on Zoom. And there's also another round of community conversations coming up. I think that one's online. I'm not positive. November 16th, so that's a little ways out. But those are the next things that's coming up that way. And I went to the first SEAT meeting, and that was good opportunity. Again, I think not as big a turnout as you might expect, but a lot of good dialogues. Quite a good amount of people there still. Just basically going over the SEAT definitions and what resonates with individual members, and what examples we've seen in the school district exemplifying some of those elements.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, thank you everybody for the updates. All right, now we move on to the acceptance of the warrant report, statement of revenue, treasurer's report, and budget status report. Oh, there's no vote on this, right? All right. And now on to the approval of the meeting minutes. So let me resolve, the Board of Education have received copies of minutes of the meetings of 9/12 and 10/3. Hereby approves the same.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? All right. On to, with some regret in this one, on to the personnel consent agenda. Then my regret, I'll explain my regret. My regret is, let me go, that it be resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendations of the superintendent of schools, hereby approves the attached personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right. My regret is it has Mr. Mark Bear's resignation for
Do we have to
retirement.
accept it?
I don't know. If we just skip that one, that'd be great. But unfortunately, we have to vote on this.
And so, as the board knows, that in May, we'll take a few moments then to kind of celebrate all the folks retiring and things like that. So, again, my colleague of 12 years here, so thank you very much, sir. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. We'll talk more in May, I think, so thank you.
And we're all going to be at the graduation, right?
Oh, right.
Yes.
A lot of pressure.
All right, if we skip, go on to the next one and don't vote, it doesn't count, right? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? I did the other parts, right?
You did it right.
All right, great. CSE, CPSC meeting recommendations. Resolve the Board of Education have received copies of the recommendations of the meetings as listed on the attached memo, hereby approves the same.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained, objections? Business consent agenda. Let it be resolved the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, hereby approves the attached business agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, abstained, objections? Team Tusker mentoring volunteers. Let it be resolved upon recommendation of the school board, the Board of Education Summer Central School District hereby appoints the following volunteers assigned as mentors or committee members for the district's Team Tuskers mentoring program of 2023 school year, as stated in the board agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstained, objections?
And thank you to mentors.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Policy first reading. Heidi, you want to give a update on that?
Yeah, I mean, basically, they're all there, and there's the notes to explain the changes. So we've gone through these. Does anybody have any particular questions?
I only noticed on a couple of them, but in the board organizational meeting, the shalls, it seems that our will is to replace shall with will. There is later on a shall that is still in there, and if we shall want that to stay, then so be it. But if it's our will to replace it with will, there was just one shall that was
Good
still there.
attention to
Very
detail.
good. So you will send us that one?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I shall.
Okay.
I shall.
You know, I find I
It's
saw.
on like section 6, I think.
Well, my kids thought dad jokes were bad. So, yeah. School board jokes are even worse.
I think I noticed. Well, I noticed one that was changed to will, and I thought it might need to be. You're going to laugh at this. May, because you were saying that they may conduct business. It's not that they will conduct business, right? Isn't that what you're trying? In the sorry, I have my notes and now I'm trying to line them up. Was it 2210 was the subject? So in section. In the very last section, in section 7, it says the board, and it crosses out shall, and it says will conduct general business at the meeting before it adjourns if it so desires. And I don't know, it's a may more than a will because it may not, right? But I guess it's splitting hairs. But that wasn't one of my major questions.
So there's still time for grammar check or changes.
If we could go back to I was just going to take it in order. If we go back to 1740, I'm just pulling it up. So in the special education section, it says special education services. I was just having trouble kind of digesting that sentence. So I just was curious. Is it saying that a non-resident attending a non-public school in the district can be provided special education services at the public school or in another location? Or is it trying to say something totally different and I'm misunderstanding it. I just
we
kind of wanted to
discussed
have
that.
clarity.
We discussed that in committee, and we're going to clarify that, because that was something that was a new piece.
Okay.
And it did read like the services had to be provided in our school, not the private school, but we were clarifying that. 'Cause
Okay.
That's not how it's been, I think.
So we'll have an update. We've got
At the next one, 'cause this
council
is the
will
first one.
join us
Okay.
at our next touchstone.
Yeah, so first read, still working on some of the clarification.
Oh,
you
sorry.
have
And
more,
then, yeah, I just had two more, I promise. And then 2210, going back to that with the home, are you talking about the whole board? Okay. Are we talking about the whole board, not those present, correct? When you talk about the majority of the board has to vote, it's the whole board, not just the ones who are present.
Of the 7, correct?
Right, okay. So I just want to make sure.
It has to be a
Yeah,
majority.
you need majority of the whole board.
It has to be a majority of the whole board.
So I didn't know if we wanted to make that like abundantly clear, or if it's fine how it is.
It
That's
says a
fine.
majority of
I thought it
all
was clear,
members
but
of the
it's
board.
Good point.
Oh, it was necessary for election, never mind, that's a different spot.
And
And
then-
that piece is by state law, you'd have to have that too, so.
Right, so that's why, I mean, I know it's kind of required, and I know it's, but I just wanted to,
But it does say a majority of the board, not majority of the board present, correct?
right.
Yeah. So that's accurate.
Of all, yeah.
Okay, and then
If there are 5 people present,
it still has to be 4.
Still have to have 4 that,
yes, it would have to be 4.
right,
If there's only 4, all 4.
It has to be 4.
yeah.
Okay, and that was it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then we have policy suspensions. Any questions on that? This is for vote, right, or no? Yeah?
Well,
Yeah.
first, did we do the first reading?
Oh, we didn't do the be it resolved for the first reading yet.
We have to do be it resolved, okay.
Yeah.
Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education, Somer Central School District does hereby accept the following policies for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained, objections? All right, be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby accepts the following policies for suspension.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained, objections? All right, now we open up to public comment. Does anyone want to talk? If not, I'm not going to read it.
Do you want to sing, Mark, just for the?
All right, no public comment. Now we go to board member comments.
Yeah, we got to go do the walkthrough at SIS for the reading program. It's actually good to get into the classrooms and see the teachers at work. So I just thought that was pretty worthwhile for us, especially being a new member.
It was great. I always just love getting those tours. And we got to see some of the differences between Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and the interaction and the energy of the kids was just terrific. It was, what a great day. I loved it. Thank you for the presentation on our social, emotional, physical wellness. I think the roadmap, one of the things that I just love about it is it feels proactive. You have these steps you're going through, different stages in for our students as they go through school to have these experiences and find out when, as soon as possible, when maybe there may be some challenges, but beyond that, helping them with developing some tools so that they can help themselves and get through tough times and be able to handle them better. I think being proactive on that, I think is just terrific, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to triple the statement of going to SIS was wonderful. You could just tell how engaged the students were, and you could tell that it wasn't because we were coming through to visit and that we had the special visitors, and it's always great to see where the dollars were being spent as far as like the professional development was clearly coming out to see the different tiers of intervention being used in the literacy program. So that was great to see. And thank you, Phil, for the presentation. As you know, I've been a big supporter of the social emotional wellness curriculum, and I love that the school district's embracing the foundation of executive functioning skills and having to explicitly teach it to the kids. So I think that's a great direction that we're going in. And yeah, and I've been able to attend several of events lately with, I guess, boys volleyball, a game I got to attend a couple not so long ago. I've been at most of the back to school nights the last couple months in a different role, but still got to see a lot of them, so that was great. And yeah, it's great to see everyone kind of coming in and being energized, so.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation today about the social emotional wellness programs. I've heard it a lot before, but tonight just really seemed to clarify a lot of the distinctions and differences. And even some questions I had as I looked at the slide, you elaborated so much more on the nuances and the details that was there. So it answered all my questions and gave a good, clear picture. So thank you so much for that. And even understanding especially the co-vitality survey and how you're using it and what you're looking at and what elements, what's so important about that. So thank you. And then yes, thank you to SIS for that visit and for all the administrators that helped organize it. Very cool, all the things that we've been hearing, to be able to see an Orton Gillingham lesson, see snippets of an Orton Gillingham lesson, a PAF lesson, foundations in an entire classroom, in the different group sizes, and a literature discussion, to really help understand what's going on there. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I agree. It was great to see all that at work. You hear a lot about it at meetings, but to actually go and see how it's being done and how the children are learning and adapting and just really being involved, it was great to see. It's great to see it at work.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you again for tonight for that presentation on that. Agree. I'll like you also on the reading side. Reading it and just learning it, not as a non-educator, go in there and seeing it at work. And to your point, the different intensities and tiers and how kids move around and all that. It's good to actually see it in practice. The PTA stuff, again, I'm going to continue to try to get to some other stuff. I hope others can, please start attending those. I'd love to meet more people and, hear kind of what their thoughts are, what's going on. PTA is doing a lot of great things. A great way for, community members in the district to help out, whether you're there all the time or not, but, get involved. I know they can use and appreciate the help, and also to get some access and talk to some of the administration and collaborate with them would be a great help to overall school and the kids. I got to attend a bunch of events, and I'm going through my list. They all happen to be sports. I do have to kind of make an effort to go see something else. I've seen a couple things get posted, and I have to try to make more of an effort to get there. But congrats to all the fall sports and all their achievements, and best of luck to all of them in the upcoming sectional and league finals and all that coming up. I wrote a note, I can't read my own handwriting. Come back to that one. Last but at least, Mark, there's probably many more of this to come, but watching you and hearing you with the my kids, other kids, and the way you connect and relate with them in the school every day, your presence is going to be missed. Hopefully we all get to take advantage and appreciate you for the remainder of this year while you are here. If I could try to convince you at least stay a couple more years till my kids are out, but we'll see. But thank you for all you do. That's all.
Great. I'll just, a couple of things. One, just wanted to follow up a little. We talked a little bit, I think, in our last board meeting or maybe before that, just about, I had a chance to meet with our music team a little bit, they're really pretty amazing in my opinion. And so there's always an opportunity and a welcoming, any student would like to be involved, in particular our strings and band program and vocal program. I did want to highlight that, particularly one of the things at the middle school that a couple of years we were able to do ago was to bring in the music program for those kids during the instructional day. And so we actually have seen the number of students increase being involved in those programs. So I wanted to thank the middle school team and the rest of the K through 12 music team, because that has actually been a piece. Now we're starting to see that students are staying a little bit more. Now they'll kind of carry it to the high school. So we're fortunate to be able to do that so kids can bring that in during the day. The other part, again, with the SAS visit, thank you so much for coming. I know everybody's days are really, really rampant and really busy, and you came in perfect, came out, so thank you so much for letting us just kind of go across the school to kind of hear the children and get an understanding a little bit of how the faculty is supporting the children. And like you were saying, I think, Pat, you were saying just that you got a sense of it very quickly about where children's were, what they needed to support, and stepped them through that process between whole group, small group, individual, and things. So it is truly rocket science, in my opinion, when you're looking at what folks are doing to help children read and understand their reading, as well as being able to be effective communicators. So I couldn't be more proud of our SIS colleagues. The next piece I had was just, again, as we talk a little bit about my colleague, Mr. Bear, our colleague. So he has certainly set our campus up and continued to move that campus forward. And as the school looks at this year, providing more opportunities for students than ever before with the International Baccalaureate program, the Advanced Placement program, Project Lead the Way program, our pre-engineering program, our biomedical sciences program that's over there now and there, as well as our dual enrollment classes and things. Higher percentage of students ever being involved in extracurricular activities, activities or clubs or service-oriented pieces. So I had the pleasure, and you heard from our student body president earlier before, Sebastian, and he's part of a group that I'm getting a chance to meet with about every month. And you could just feel from the energy that the campus is so welcoming and so connected. And when we just started talking about, hey, can you talk to me about belonging, what it feels like in your school? It was not silence. It was like, well, we have this, we have this, we have this. And so it was a really testament to me to help and understand about how Mark and his team have led, every student is finding a home at our high school. So thank you, Mr. Bear. With that, I know there's nervous people. I would be one of them. So how do we have our next principal come on, not replace, but our next principal to follow Mr. Bear? So we will be very shortly going ahead and starting that process. So that process includes a posting on a number of different kind of listservs that we have and out into the educational area. Once that posting closes, about 3 weeks down the road, we have a review of applications at that point, and then it heads to the building. The building makeup of administrator principal position is made up of, basically you have members of the PTA that are on there. High school, we will have students who will be on that interview process there. We'll have members of our teaching team, as well as our supports team, and as well as members of our human resources team. So they'll go through that process. And so then the next step is to come to the finalist interviews, and that's with myself and the rest of the members of the central office team. And then after that, the finalists will kind of meet with the board, and then the subsequent board meeting would be looking for approval there. So that is the process that we would go through on administrative hirings. And what we'll do is I just wanted to make that clear with the board, and we'll make sure that's up on the website so folks can just see that in case they just didn't get to come tonight. They had something better to do and something different to do, even though the Bills are not playing till Thursday. But we'll go ahead and see how it comes. So again, I feel very comfortable and very confident, and Mark and his team has us poised to take the next right step. We're not wondering where the school would like to go, because there's teacher leaders there, there's other administrators there that they are well poised to take that on. And I would say that one of the things of a strong leader is that if that leader does move forward, that the energy and the impetus continue to move forward, and I have no doubt that it will in the best of fashion. So thank you, board.
Great. All right. Let it be resolved that this regular meeting of the Board of Education be adjourned.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Great. Thank you.